Good morning and welcome to the ODPP Café. It's Friday, another day to empower ourselves and to learn matters on the criminal justice system and the law. Welcome to the ODPP Café. If it is your first time, feel free to comment on the comment section, to engage us on the comment section on Facebook Live. We are also on Twitter at ODPP_KE and on YouTube, where we welcome you to subscribe at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. My name is Anita Onuko. I'll be your host for today. We are available today. We are going to talk about leadership and integrity today. We are talking about this because corruption has been sort of the curse of our generation. And again, we're now on campaign mode. I know we've been on campaign mode since the last campaign, but now the drums are sounding louder. And it's time to talk about our expectation of who we are going to elect and, of course, what we are doing about corruption currently. I have experts as usual in the show, and at least today I'm lucky to have a lady and a gentleman. You have met Terry, so I am going to just ask them to introduce themselves, and of course, wageni kwanza, in as much as we do ladies first. But Karibu Philip, please introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you do.
All right, thank you very much, Anita. My name is Philip Kagushia. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. We're in the same industry with Terry, although as you can tell from this, the mileage on this car, I work for EACC, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I was an asset recovery lawyer, but currently I'm in charge of the Corporate Affairs and Public Communications department, and I'm really happy to be here because these are topics which are close to my heart, especially the issue of leadership and integrity. And before I hand over to Terry to do the intro, I would just like perhaps to clarify for the people who are watching or listening in. You know, we work very closely with the DPP because we are part of the same criminal justice chain. But some people don't know what EACC does and at what point they hand over to DPP.
And we'll get to that.
And we'll get to that. So at some point when she has done her introduction, we would like to come back.
Yes, definitely, you can do that. Terry, take two.
Yes, good morning, Anita, and good morning to our viewers. My name is Terry Kahoro. I'm in the Anti-Corruption Department at ODPP and also the Proceeds of Crime Recovery Unit. Yes. And I am happy to have Mr. Kagushia here. I am his student, I must say. Yes, because we have worked closely together with him and also done some joint trainings. So I think today's topic, you have the two part of the agencies that can really discuss this critical topic.
Yes. Karibu sana Terry. It's not the first time for Terry to be on the show, it's the second time. And we're always glad to have her here. So I don't know whether we start with the mandate of the EACC or we start with definition, but maybe because we're talking about chapter 6 of the Constitution, leadership and integrity, we can start by defining what leadership is and what it entails in the spirit of our Constitution. What was envisioned in chapter 6. Yeah, so maybe Philip.
Yeah, so you know, when Kenyans passed the Constitution in 2010, they had certain expectations about the caliber of leadership that they should get. And that's why the entire chapter 6 of the Constitution is dedicated to leadership and integrity. And the reason I was connecting that with the mandate is because the mandate that people know is a law enforcement mandate. Yes. So EACC is known for combating and preventing corruption. And how it does that is law enforcement. But apart from law enforcement, there's another side where we do education, training, public awareness, and then we enforce ethics. And if you look at even the way the Constitution is set up, Chapter 6 has only, I think, seven articles from 73 to 80. So they're not very many. I think those are 8 articles. If you go to Article 79, there shall be an independent ethics and anti-corruption commission.
And this is who you are now.
And that's why I'd like to mention that because before it was just Kenya anti-corruption. But what the people of Kenya have said, there's an additional mandate of ethics that has come to ngumu sana. And it's ngumu because, as we were discussing earlier, can you legislate people's conduct? So now back to what chapter 6 says, it's really about the things we expect or we should expect from our leaders. And it includes things like selection on the basis of merit, making decisions with impartiality, without favoritism, and so on and so forth. The other provisions about people having citizenship, the other provisions about maintaining accounts outside the country. And if you think about all those things deeply, you will understand why the Constitution has to set rules about how to deal with those.
Yes. And in terms of even priority of the 18 chapters, it falls number 6, meaning it's very important to us.
It's high in priority.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Terry, what is your understanding of integrity?
Integrity, Anita, goes hand in hand with leadership. That's why they are put together. Where in the public sector, the people entrusted with taking care of the population are expected to lead by example, to lead in a way that is transparent, to lead in a way that is open, a way that enhances democracy, a way that ensures that it protects the resources of the public, and many other things as enumerated in Chapter 6. So integrity is twofold. It is personal. There has to be personal integrity. You as a person, what are the values that you stand for? What are the expectations that people should have on you as a person? You should be able to be defined as so and so. It is known that you can protect public funds. Now talking from a point of view of the criminal justice system, you must be a person who is able to do selections in a way that is transparent, in a way that is fair, in a way that it is democratic. So, and the second fold of integrity is now what the law expects of you as a leader. What the law provides, what should you do? You must ensure equality, equity, and all those other things. Yes.
Was the bar set too high? Can we have such people in this country? What are the world in this country? Was the bar set too high, Philip?
You know, I'm a huge advocate for the bar being set high. Generally speaking, anything, even at home with your kids, when you tell them that tunataka apate 400 out of 500, you're setting the bar high. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with setting the bar high. Yeah. What is interesting, and I like this issue. I don't know if you recall, Terry, that about 7-8 years ago, somebody went to court and they raised the same issue. They're saying, because how the constitution is set up, you have Article 79 that sets up EACC. Then Article 80 says Parliament shall enact legislation for the effective administration of this chapter. That legislation is the Leadership and Integrity Act. That is what is supposed to be governing our leaders. But we have a huge problem because as soon as the law came out, we were wondering, hang on, did this meet the threshold? And that's why you're asking about the bar. So maybe under the constitution, the bar is really high. But when the legislation was passed, maybe it's not meeting our threshold. And they went to court, and I think they were trying to have the Leadership and Integrity Act declared unconstitutional. But the court said, you see, you can't just, there's a presumption of constitutionality. Just for the sake that it has not met your expectations. So we have a small gap here, and that's where the issue of the bar is relevant to this topic. And just before maybe I hand over to Terry, there's something else I'd like to say. The people who you are wakina nani? Okay, so of course, are they going to be, Katiba imeset standard hapa, they have a law, are they really going to make a law that's going to bring it up here? So we have a slight challenge.
There's a gap. So then now, the criminal justice system, because you find people don't understand, it's one of those things that has become quite difficult to understand about who does what in all these institutions. So maybe this is the point, Philip, tell us, what is your mandate as EACC? Yes.
All right, as I mentioned earlier, the mandate of EACC is to combat and prevent corruption. There's some academic debate about whether you prevent first then combat or combat first.
Oh my God, what did you first?
The way we look at it is this: if Kenya were a patient, would the condition be critical or not critical? It's critical.
Critical.
So what you do is you combat first. Alafu akistabilize, you start preventing. It's like a person who's sick. You give them treatment first, and then you start telling them, wacha kukula nyama, unajua punguza pombe and stuff like that. So we start with the combating and then prevention. And the mechanisms we use, and the ones which are more familiar to most Kenyans, is law enforcement, because we investigate. We analyze the records that we have. We make recommendations to the DPP, and if the DPP concurs, the DPP now charges. Okay, and I'm very happy that we are here with Terry, because as part of the justice chain, I think we are in agreement over 90% of the time. So that's great. That's what people know. But the other side of it, which people don't know, is education, training, public awareness.
Yeah.
What we are doing here today, Anita,
Yeah.
is public awareness. We're helping the people who are listening in or watching to understand. But there's another aspect, which is the promotion of ethics. And that one is one which is a bit complicated because, as I mentioned, the Leadership and Integrity Act maybe does not give us enough tools to effectively administer Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Yeah.
But when you talk about ethics, how different is it from what NCIC does?
This is the cohesion.
Yes, national cohesion.
That's different. I think, and if you've seen is it the chairman of the SEO? Because I think he was on television yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was on TV the other day, and I think what they're trying to do is to prevent people getting carried away by the upcoming elections and incitement and things like that. So, if I remember correctly, the whole title is National Cohesion and Integration. So that's different.
So, what is ethics then?
So, I don't know if I don't want to get too philosophical. The English version.
Yeah.
So you have integrity. Okay. The simplest way of understanding integrity, and this is how we talk to people when you go outside, is it is what you would do. It's doing the right thing at all times. And they say doing what is right even if no one is looking. Yeah. But ethics is now the codification of integrity. And they start telling you ethics involves financial probity, transparency, honesty, and all those things. So the codification of integrity is what is captured in ethics. Yes.
Okay. All right. So Terry, they investigate, then they bring the file to you.
Yes.
That is how the system works. So now what happens then?
As he has said, it is a chain. So once they have investigated, it comes to us. Our mandate being under Article 157, which is to initiate criminal prosecution. Once in the file, if you find that there is sufficient evidence, and of course there are parameters that are well guided, you must have sufficient evidence. It must be the public interest. The evidence must be admissible. So once all those thresholds have been met, then the decision to charge is made. So the decision to charge can be to charge if those thresholds are met. If not, it can be a decision not to charge, either because the evidence is not sufficient, or maybe it is not in the public interest, or the evidence is not admissible. Or you could have a not to charge where you don't find those thresholds, or sometimes that evidence is still out there. So ODPP liaises with EACC. We look at what evidence can be brought in or is still out there and is needed. Once it is sufficient, the decision is made, charges are prepared, the same are filed in court, and that's when the criminal prosecution commences. And still in court, we work very closely with EACC, because in court you still need your investigator and the prosecutor. And I must say that the best cases won or even lost together are those where we are able to work very closely together, so that the result is owned by all of us. And also sometimes we have other agencies involved. Yes.
I will take you straight to some comments somebody made on Facebook. And just for clarity again, when we put up our leadership and integrity topic this week, the first comment we got was the ODPP has no mandate for this chapter 6. What did you tell that such a person, and me as well, because you're teaching me? Yeah, why would someone think you have no mandate?
We do have a mandate. The mandate is, it could be different agencies have different mandates.
Yes.
Now, Chapter 6 talks about the Anti-Corruption Commission. The Anti-Corruption Commission, once they have their results, because when you go to the Leadership and Integrity Act, you will find that when it comes to the actions that can be taken, some are administrative, and then others are recommending criminal proceedings. So that is where our mandate kicks in, so that the Anti-Corruption Commission can actually find that this is a case that requires prosecution.
Yes.
So we come in. Secondly, Anita, we are the agency that enforces all these acts in terms of prosecution. May it be starting with the Constitution, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Elections Act, the Elections Offences Act, and all those acts that support Chapter 6. Therefore, we have, in fact, a big mandate in terms of prosecution. The other aspect of our mandate is also on training, because we must train our staff and other agencies, and also in a multi-agency setting to enhance and enforce and implement these acts that are premised on Chapter 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, interesting. Now we know. I was also questioning with him, like when he put up, I'm like, anyway, what is the mandate here?
No, maybe if you,
Yes.
with your permission, I
Yes.
can jump in.
Yeah.
The simpler way to look at it is this. You know, the DPP prosecutes all crime
Yes.
across the country. That's a mandate under Article 157, right? So supposing the crime is committed by a leader, and the EACC has investigated and is bringing those crimes, don't you think that the decision, and by there I have to upload the DPP, because they even have, I think, guidelines on decision to charge.
Yeah.
So that the decision to charge is not on a whim. It's not that the DPP has woken up in a bad mood and he has said, Anita, unaenda jela leo, no, ama unaenda kotini. So imagine EACC has done an investigation. The person who is affected is a leader, maybe a governor, an MP, senator, MCA, or even a head of a parastatal, because that is a position of public trust that somebody has to demonstrate ethical conduct. So once we've made recommendations, the moment he is charged by the DPP, are co-affected. So they clearly have a mandate.
They have a mandate.
Yes.
Now we know. So there's something else about EACC and the Anti-Corruption and Economics Act. How do these two relate?
Okay, so you get me very excited about this. So in 2003, the Anti-Corruption Economic Crimes Act is one that established the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. So we had KACC, and I think even before that, there was even a CASA, a Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority.
Yes.
So if you go back to the history, yes, and we are improving, and somewhere in between we got a little bit of a boost because we became signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption in 2003, and that convention says all member states, including Kenya, should have an agency mandated to fight with corruption, to fight corruption. The only thing that happened is after 2010, tukaongezewa mandate. Now, not just anti-corruption issues, but also ethics. That's why we call Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
All right, interesting. There's so many acts and laws and all those things. Looks like we are well covered, but we are covered by the law and institutions, but there's still a gap that we still need to maybe fill as a country. So Terry, you mentioned about the decision to charge, and you mentioned about public interest. I'm wondering, just from a layman's perspective, again, I'm not a lawyer, but at all corruption cases of public interest, especially corruption within government, are they all not classified? As in, hata before usikie unasema public interest tick. What do you look for?
Public interest is a term actually that is easily, you can misinterpret it. It is not public interest the way it sounds, like the public is interested. It is a more, it could be, in fact, we have guidelines on what is public interest. Of course, it is in the public interest that you secure public funds. So it is admirable to charge such offenses. But then in some instances, it could be better to maybe apply alternatives to prosecution. So you choose another alternative that is better, more efficient, more effective, more productive. An example would be a person who is not, let's say, notorious in terms of what happened, is ready to admit, is even ready to, so that you have like plea bargain coming in. Or at the very beginning, this person is ready to return everything that they took. So you will have meted justice, but maybe not by way of a prosecution. So it is in the interest of the public that you have this matter expeditiously disposed of, the coffers money back. And I'll give an example of Kagushia, the Nairobi University land matter.
Yes.
It was indeed in the public interest to have the land returned. And also you look also at other factor, the age of that person, the health of that person. And so there are many, the public interest encompasses a lot, but then it also comes with a lot of responsibility. it has to be a very transparent process as to why this is not, it is in the public interest not to prosecute. And look also at our justice system. It is clogged up. So is it in the interest that you want to put each and every case in the system and have people, you don't have justice for years and years? I mean, or would you rather there are those that must go through the criminal process. Yeah. But if you're able to divert, of course, encompassing those transparency policies and all, then you have a better justice system. In fact, Anita, you'll find in other countries, only 10% of all cases go to court. And the rest, yes, the rest are disposed of in alternative methods. Yeah. But for the longest time, and the traditional way, and how we have always seen justice to be, is to take someone to court. But I think with time, we are finding it is not sometimes the most efficient. It really does matter when you are able to find alternatives, but within the confines of the law.
That's how we are cultured, I think. You have to go to the court to tuone kitu inafanyika. But even that said, Philip, with all this synergy, with all these institutions and laws, you still lose for those that go to court. What happens? And then, before you even tell me, you will see people throwing daggers at ESCC, throwing daggers at these two institutions.
Yeah, nobody likes
ODPP and ESCC. So what gives? I mean, do you have control? I mean, after your mandate, you've investigated, you've prosecuted, then what?
Well, I'm not sure this thing about losing cases is based on data. You know why? Yeah. From our end, we have a conviction rate of 63%, and I think that's not far from what the DPP is also recording, although for the DPP, it's all crime. Yes. Okay, yeah. But for corruption matters, I think we have a conviction rate of 63. 63% is not terrible. It's not bad. It's not poor. Yeah. Okay, but it can be better. And one of the ways it can be better is what Terry is talking about. Because we are socialized in a way where we expect everything to go through the court, yes. We have to start re-engineering the system. We have to start educating the people, so that even people, when the public hears something, because this is still public interest, yes. When they hear something, they don't react negatively to it. They're like, okay, this is the new way of doing things. The reason the conviction rates are higher in developed countries is because, one, the quality of investigations is high. The resources are high. By the time the suspect is confronted, he's like, okay, I will take 1 year because I know if I go to court, I'll get 10 years. Yeah, yeah. Also, somebody will say, look, I made a mistake. I'm willing to make amends. I can even refund the money. And I'm glad that Terry reminded me of that case when I was still in the legal department. So when I filed the matter, we thought we were going to fight with somebody until the death. Turns out it was an old man. He had served this country. He was a soldier. He was ailing. Clearly he had been misled. But akona title ya shamba belonging to the University of Nairobi, and that was valued at 2 billion shillings. Whoa. So when people are wondering what we are doing as a criminal justice partners, those are some of the things we're doing. We came together, we listened to the guy. He said he wants to return the property, no other issues, and we let it go. Now, public interest. Yes. Kenyans are the ones who will ask you, wanasemangaje, mwizi wa kuku wanafungwa 5 years na mfisadi anapigwa. Fine. That is the meaning of public interest, because in the same tone they will say, umefunga mtu and all this person did was sign a voucher. Hata si yeye alikula pesa. Alifanya makosa kusign voucher, but hata si yeye alikula pesa nini. So why you putting that one in? That money is only 1 million. Lakini tunajua kuna watu wa billions. As I said, we have adopted a strategy where we are looking into high impact investigations. And the high impact is guided by who is involved, because if the profile of the person involved is high, clearly there's high impact. The value, we've just mentioned the 2 billion land, that's a high value case, which means it will have high impact. But the third and very important, equally important ingredient is public interest. Yes. So that is where I was before we got disconnected.
And we're clear public interest, not what is trending. It means other things within the law. So then this conversation will not be as rich as it should be if we don't talk about elections and our leaders. Where do we fail? We have the institutions, we have the laws. Chapter 6 is clear, and the constitution should be what we want, how we want to be governed. But how come we are not living by it? What is it? Where is the gap, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm always amused when I hear people saying the law is clear.
The law is clear.
It's one of the favorite expressions
Yeah.
from lawyers. Yet we spend hours and hours and hours in court interpreting those same laws which are supposed to be clear. And the truth is there are a few gray areas, and I agree with you that we don't have a shortage of laws.
No.
So maybe the issue is implementation, but the one law which we should be relying upon the Leadership and Integrity Act, there's a way in which those of us who are in this industry feel like maybe it has fallen short. So let's start with the supreme law of the country. That is the Constitution. We are going to an election year, right? As I said, kipenga kishapigwa. We now know, I think, from February 9th, people can start campaigning. Tentative date in August, depending on how things are unfolding in the country. The Constitution, Article 99, sub-Article 3, is the one that says that you cannot bar somebody, even if they are facing a criminal charge. So EACC may have done an investigation, made recommendations to DPP. DPP has said, charge this person. That in itself is not a bar, and it's the Constitution which is saying that. I think what makes things complicated is that even if this person is convicted, again, the Constitution says you cannot bar this person until they exhaust all avenues of appeal. And I don't know, sijui kama ushawahi kuwa na kesi hapa koti zetu. As Terry said, the system is clogged. You charge somebody this year. By the time the first round kwa chief magistrate inaisha, that is 2 to 3 years. Okay? Assuming we win and he or she is convicted.
All because it's the clock.
There are just too many cases. And that's why it's a very good solution to seek alternative channels of resolving these issues. But for those that must go to court, they will go to court. Okay? So 3 years, amekuwa convicted, amesema guilty of corruption. But he can appeal because he has a right to a fair trial under the Constitution. So he appeals, he goes to the High Court. We argue another couple of years. Amemaliza term ya kwanza.
So, do we have special costs?
And not forgetting, just to add on to that, the preliminary applications that are involved, so that it won't be a direct charging and a direct appeal. There are so many, delay tactics in between applications. So then
they change lawyers.
They change anything is possible. So
like I've seen the one we read today, there's been changes during the court, and a new court must decide how this case continues. So that is a delay. But do we have a provision for special courts for corruption cases?
Yes, we do. We have the anti-corruption courts. We have the lower courts. Then we also have the designated high court to deal with corruption courts. And this came up as a way of dealing with these challenges that we have talked about, dealing with the challenges of the numbers, because then the courts, those specific courts, and also now we have specific maybe prosecutors and also the investigators specific dealing. So you are able to make more progress than if there was no specialization. Is there still room for improvement? Absolutely.
Yeah. So have we made progress with this chapter 6?
Well, I'll get into that as I finish up what Terry said, because of the dedicated divisions. So in the magistrate court, you have anti-corruption courts, right? And in the High Court, I think it was CJ Mutunga, I think in 2016 he said there shall be an anti-corruption and economic crimes division of the High Court. What that helps us to do is to channel all these cases which are of a similar kind to that division. But it improves the ability of the judicial officers to understand corruption cases because they're unique. Corruption is a white-collar crime. It's very complex.
Yes.
It is collusive in nature. Ni watu wawili wanakuanga wamepanga magizani. It's not like a murder case. Ati huyu alimchapa na fimbo jamaa akafa. Tuliona he was wearing a red shirt. So there's all that. Okay, so it's different. So we've seen that. But in terms of chapter 6, are we making progress? One of the things that is happening is people who are going to be vying for positions in public service will be completing self-declaration forms. Okay? And in that self-declaration form, kuna hiyo pahali kama uko na kesi. Okay?
Nitasema tu niko nayo.
It's okay, but now kuna wale watasema hawana. Okay? Kuna wale watatudanganya. kuna mtu atasema ako na degree na tukichunguza tutasema hana na tutawapeleka kotini. So I guess what I'm trying to say is bit by bit, we're trying to put in the structures to strengthen, because right now if the law has a small gap, all we can do is just tighten the structures as we see a way of getting the law amended. But I'll just mention something else. You know that mandate of public awareness sometimes is underplayed, but the reason we do this public awareness is if you know that this person has integrity issues, why are you voting for him? Mtu wetu. So at some point we have to share responsibility. Kama kuna pale sisi kwa law enforcement tuko na challenges, the citizen pia akubali.
So the recent announcement by IBC about the elections, the campaign funds, I've been asking myself, and I know a lot of people are asking themselves, are we already vetting these people to know where they're getting this money from? Should these investigations, for example, start from there? When you know Anita is vying for presidency, ama atuacha presidency, MCA, ni mambo wa kapi yangu ni 3 million.
Hata president unaweza.
Hata president unaweza. So mimi nasema sasa kama tukadogo MCA, Anita nataka kuna MCA huko ushago kwao. Cap is 3 million. And you know for a fact, I have just been working or not. I've been hustling. Do you, at this stage, are you allowed to investigate where I'm going to get money for the funds? And then can you investigate and prosecute and say, hii pesa hata before itoke, sio safi?
Yeah, I think the confusion would be expecting that the person who is vying has to have worked for that money, which is not really the case. Some of this money can come from donors or from well-wishers. And the only thing that we as law enforcement agencies have to guard against is somebody who is investing in you as a candidate so that in future they get business. And it's a vicious cycle, and this pattern is everywhere in the world. It's not just Kenya. It is everywhere in the world. So when you have campaign financing, and I see you said for MCA is 3 million.
Yeah, I think
if I sink in 2 million, the first thing I want you to do ni unipatie tender ya kuleta stationary to the county assembly.
That's your corruption.
Exactly. So it's a vicious cycle. And how do you prevent that? Again, it's being vigilant, and institutions like KCC, which have the mandate to investigate ethical conduct and ethical issues, will be eyes open. I think the CEO last month also warned people, ikifika February 9th, and you're a civil servant and you want to go and vie, wachana na kazi, because we'll come and look at you.
I saw even the media council made an announcement yesterday about journalists who want to vie.
Yes.
By 9th of wameanza.
Oh yes, by 9th. Yes.
So I'm wondering.
Yes.
Sorry, what did you say?
Just to add on to that, you see this concept of capping the political campaigning funds. It's an international standard that is being set up. Now, when you come to Kenya, the constitution first says that those voting must be protected from corruption. Then from there, you have laws actually which have been enacted. You have the Elections Campaign Financing Act, which actually caters for that. And you also have the Political Parties Act. Now, the laws are there, like we have discussed. But I think now the procedure and the implementation and all the players, the registrar of political parties, the IBC, the citizens, vetting of who are your funding, who are the people funding you, what are the integrity levels. In terms of these checks and balances, I think they are still weak. And I think I look forward to a point where we are able to now, because if EACC is to come for evidence on an issue of who funded you, unless you have had those laws provide for the procedures of how disclosure should be done, but unless you have the other agencies who are supposed to play those roles doing it, then EACC will go look for evidence and not find it. So it is a collected responsibility, and I think that is one of the areas that needs a step up.
Okay, so I have the other question. You brought about the alternatives to prosecution in corruption cases. Does it make it such a soft landing for people who have been found to be corrupt? I mean, if I know I can just make a plea and I get a slap on the wrist for whatever, for the billions I've stolen, should there not be some very hefty, what is it called, penalties for corruption?
I say it is how you look at it. One, by the time someone was engaging in corruption, again, the motivation was one, to get illicit funds.
Yeah.
Now look at it from where you start by taking that away from them. In fact, that is more painful than just prosecuting, and they keep that money. So I say, and also it is also guided by they pay with interest. We are also saying that they will have to admit responsibility. So they are not just, behind returning the money and not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
So they are taking responsibility. They are returning. They are returning that which they took, and they are returning it with interest, and they are also compensating the state or the person they took that from. So, and if you are if you look at the mens rea of a person, or rather the motive, I think it's a very effective way when you deal with the motive, when you tackle a problem from what made that person do that. And for corruption, it is because they wanted to enrich themselves. They have bought a house in Kileleshwa, they have bought vehicles, they have taken their kids to. Once you take that away, you realize how painful that is. And you met justice by that. But we are also saying prosecution is also good for some of these cases as well. So it is an integrated way of dealing with the issues.
Yeah. On a light note, I think when we were talking about corruption the last time, somebody put on Twitter that we just need to just hang these people. Then people, it will be a serious determined, like I won't touch because I will die,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's quite interesting. So I want to just ask some questions here that are on social. So Owen Gatehi, thank you for tuning in. Toka Akebe says I should look at the camera. They want to see my eyes. I'll talk to the producer, Toka. But Mangara Mwangi asks, are court proceedings open for public to attend?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you know when to attend what? Where is it? Where do you know a case is?
Okay, that's fairly simple. So the judiciary has its website, and the judiciary website there's a cause list. And if you go to the website and you type Anita with the right surname, they'll find when your case is coming up. And you panda your matatu, you come to town, you go to Milimani, and you sit in the back hapo kwa bench. The only thing that has happened, which is a challenge, is the COVID protocols. That is the only thing that has changed, because a lot of our proceedings are now virtual.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Yes, you see, I've said they're tuned in. Yeah. And then there's this is Farida Kokita says she's looking forward to the conversation today. So thank you so much. How will the general election candidates be vetted under Chapter 6?
Yeah, that keeps coming up because there's a misconception that EACC clears candidates to run. And it's not so much...
Wait, you don't clear candidates to run?
You remember I mentioned something called a self-declaration form. Yes. So that is what they come and they complete. And in those forms, there are certain facts they are going to put. And on the basis of those facts, we'll cross-check with our database because we have information about a number of these candidates. On top of that, when people submit their candidacy to IEBC, IEBC shares that list. And when you look at that list, we will tell them, out of this list, these people have issues. And if you go back, because it's in the public domain, at the last election, I think EACC flagged almost 100 people.
100?
Okay? And that's what I was saying. IEBC might find its hands tied because you can't really bar somebody until they've exhausted all avenues.
So that's the other question then.
Yes.
So this list are those people who are accused?
They have issues. Yes. And we'll be telling the status who you are charged, who you actually are convicted but is on appeal. Like right now, we have a sitting MP who is on appeal, and he wrote something in the newspaper last week. The CDC MP, he wrote something in the newspaper saying he knows IEBC and EACC cannot stop him from running, and he was threatening his competitors, telling them to prepare for a defeat. And I'm just thinking, I mean, seriously, this is a guy who's facing very, very serious allegations. In fact, he's a convict because he's on appeal. See you. Yeah. So as far as you're concerned, he's on bail pending appeal. A person who has a sentence of 67 years. I'm
honestly shocked.
Yes.
I didn't see that in the papers, but I'm honestly shocked. Oh my. So then, public-driven leadership, personal interest, collective responsibility. How do all these things come together? I mean, how do you bring these things together? Because clearly, like we say, the law is very clear. The institutions. Then now there's Anita, there's us, there's the voter. How do we bring these things to life? Because when the last time there was a case by an MP about this, it was made a whole story, the Gachagua story. Yeah. Anita and the rest were up saying, "Oh no, you are just."
Were you blocking the road? Were you on the highway?
No, but you see, I'm just talking about because me, I have a voter, and I think about the kawaida person who'd be like a person from the ushago kwao watasema unalemea mtu wetu, you don't want him to progress.
Yes.
That time they even taken picha imechukuliwa anasoma Bible. So we are religious, deeply religious. We have the law that is very clear. We have institutions, but we're still failing.
I'm not sure we're failing. I had mentioned that sometimes when you're in the middle of the process, you don't see the progress.
Yeah.
When we invite people for interviews, media saa zingine wanatukosa, wanasemanga we are grilling people. All we are doing is we invite people for interviews.
And on that, by the way, let me tell you that you grill public servants.
We don't grill, we interview.
Okay, you interview
Yes.
some very stern-looking
investigators, yeah.
But you don't apply the same to our lawmakers. Why? I mean, it feels like Chapter 6 is heavily applied on people applying for public positions, but not on lawmakers.
No, all of them. In fact, the gentleman I was referring to, the MP for Silisia, he is one of our clients. See, that was our case. And he was taken through the same process that every other Kenyan is taken through. There is no difference, okay? And that one has ended up in a conviction. Now, about what we are going to do, and you have to have a multi-pronged approach. So, for instance, if we rely...
Such boardroom talk.
Yeah.
Multi-pronged
approach. If you rely on law enforcement peke yake, we might not succeed. Yeah. It has to be supplemented or complemented by education, training, public awareness. But you strengthen the systems. So let me give you an example. Most of the corruption inatokana na nini? Inatokana na procurement.
Public procurement.
Okay. Yeah. Can we have a system that ensures it's e-procurement and it's transparent and it's accountable, so that people don't even have the opportunity to steal? Okay. When we use this platform to raise awareness, what are we telling people? Remember, huyu mbunge, MCA, senator, governor ni mfanyikazi wako. We really need to get, tunamwitanga mhesh ndio, but really that person, sisi ndio tumemtuma hapo. And the theory, the principal agent theory, we are the principals, they are our agents. If your agent, kama say, if your insurance agent, ukimwambia kukatia insurance ya gari akosa kufanya kazi yake, si utachange? It is exactly the same thing. Once we get that in our heads, that these people are working for us, they're in a position of public trust, supervising public resources. If they misbehave, if they misuse, if they abuse that position, we change them. And that's why as we're going to the election, you'll hear ESCC continue to tell people, vote your leaders wisely, choose people with integrity.
A lot of sensitization is required, I think. What is lacking is sensitization. Chapter 6, we haven't interacted with it as citizens as much. It's something we imagine we know, but we haven't really understood that it is what we put in our constitution to sort of govern us as a country. It's quite unfortunate, though. I'm just trying to get onto the social page. Just give me a second. But then clearly there are challenges in prosecuting these cases. What are some of those?
The challenge, especially maybe the corruption surrounding maybe electoral offenses. One is lack of evidence. Like you can find that because it's supporters being bribed. So imagine trying to have evidence of that. One, nobody wants to come forward. Because you see, the threshold is the same. There has to be evidence and for a case to see the light of day in court. So Kenyans, again, we have to be candid about what we want, so that if it's like voter bribery, then if you're able to see that, come forward, give the evidence. If it is an issue of interference with the voter register, if it's an issue of all this corruption surrounding elections, then I think we must be able to get the evidence, so that now, as ODPP, we are able to now take it up and give justice to Kenyans in terms of convictions and all that. Yes.
Just a bit about then on follow the money approach. Both institutions have it. What's the progress of that?
I'm not sure the context under which you're referring to.
Like, I mean, in corruption cases,
you
have the follow. I think ODPP calls it the follow the money approach.
Yes.
I think you call it asset recovery. Is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So now, the beauty, and as I mentioned earlier, I've been an asset recovery lawyer for more than a decade. Is this the motivation for people to engage in corruption is because there is something they are going to get at the end of it. And what they do in their minds, whether consciously or subconsciously, is a risk-reward analysis. What is the risk? The risk is EACC will catch me and DPP will charge me. What is the reward? The reward is $1 million, 100 billion Kenya shillings. Anaanza kufanya hesabu ndio tuone where the skills will tip. If we are successful in our investigations and we go to court and we take away the assets. By the way, the assets can be taken away through a civil process, which is what we do at EACC, but also the DPP can get it. It's called conviction-based forfeiture. And as I said, kwa sababu umepatikana na hatia ya ufisadi, hiyo mali yote irejeshwe. When you take that away, it really hurts because all their scheming was to get this money, and you've taken it away. So it also becomes a disincentive. So the next person who does the risk-reward evaluation realizes at the end of it, nitatoka bila kitu. Why am I taking the risk? Yes.
Okay. So there's a question by Betty Buleta. She's asking, why has it taken 2 years to charge some KRA cases? I don't know which ones.
I believe I think it could be the KRA cases that involved a large number of persons. So the challenges, one, it involved a lot of those officers. Secondly, the investigations were wide, and the investigations were also complex. But I can assure her that they are now in court. So progress has been made, and sometimes those challenges are there, but finally the decision, once what was required was in the files, the cases have been taken to court.
Okay. I hope you got your answer, Betty. Peace Irene says, good job, ODPP. Chute Yusuf asks, why can the ODPP encourage ADR in cases where parties are willing to settle out of court?
We are encouraging very much. I have discussed it. We have different avenues. Plea bargain, once maybe a case is in court, we plea bargain, and it's a give and take, and it is a negotiation. We have diversion. We have deferred prosecution agreements, and we are really encouraging honesty and encouraging that where the alternatives can be applied, there is a process. Right to, if you have a matter, there's a way you write to the ODPP, and the ODPP and the investigators, they reply, and a round table. So we are encouraging a lot as investigators, as prosecutors.
I think people imagine there's a scenario where nitakula NYS, and then I say, niwachiliwe. No, that's not really the case. No, they have very, very comprehensive guidelines about who will benefit from that process. So for instance, kama nilikuwa NHIF nikakula, nikaenda NSSF nikakula, nikaenda KRA nikakula, do you think the DPP do you think the DPP will be sitting there waiting to listen to my
okay, interesting. Thanks, Ebi Kipngeno. Looking forward to today's sessions. I hope you've been you joined the conversation. Thanks, Donnell. Alicia, we have been live. I hope you managed to join. Anyway, so those are just some of the questions that were on social. Clearly, we cannot exhaust this, but I think the bottom line is our value system must be looked at, and like we're saying, we can't legislate morality, right? So what do we do? Sensitize? How? Do we put up billboards? What do we do? Is this enough? Because it feels like we're heading to a general election, but you're still going to get into the same pitfall. You're going to elect people who have questionable integrity. So what happens? What, in your opinion, what should we do as we wind up?
To be honest, I think Kenyans are getting more and more exposed to this thing. We have more access to media, we have access to information. So, the more information you have, the better decisions.
You're empowered.
You're empowered to make the decision. And because it's part of EACC's mandate, that's why we take advantage of every opportunity, including things like the ODPP Café, to come and talk to people. And if you ask us to come back, we will come back with the people from that department so that they can tell you what they are doing. We used to do all types of things, including roadshows. COVID has slowed us down, but these are things which we're actively engaging in. And also, I have faith that over time, look at the countries which seem to be doing great. They're democracies of hundreds and hundreds of years. Kenya has been a democracy.
Are you about to say we are toddlers in democracy?
Yes, that factually,
50.
it is true. We are, okay?
At what age
So
do you
you,
mature?
so you combine a number of things. You combine where the law can force people to do things, but you combine the other side where people can make decisions for themselves. If you've ever traveled abroad and you see somebody with a pet and the pet poops in the park, they stop, they pick it up, they clean it up, and they go. Is that about the law or is it about your conscientiousness?
It is your conscience.
Okay, so same thing here in Kenya. If you're driving on the highway alafu mtu anatupa chupa ya Coca-Cola nje amemaliza, anapollute, and without thinking, we need to get to that stage where somebody thinks twice and says, okay, if I throw this out, it will harm the environment. It's the same thing with ethics.
Who gets a person to that stage? Who gets your conscience to that stage?
Again, that's a very important question. You know, EACC cannot do this by itself. And in fact, if you've listened to our CEO, every time he goes out, he says, we cannot win this war by ourselves. We need you guys on our side. And one of the problems with corruption is that sometimes it kills people's faith in institutions. So sometimes people say, EACC ni kuongea wanaongea tu. But that's one of the side effects of corruption. And that's why we can't stop and we won't stop fighting it. But if we have people on our side, and when I say something like, this guy is a crook, you should think twice about voting him in. I mean, take a second and think about it. Because what is the point of getting 100 bob today and then you have 5 years of pain?
Do you think, like the list that NCIC said here when we were here last week, they said they have a list of shame. Do you think people care for those lists? Is it just not a way of making them famous? Because unfortunately, our level of shame as a people is quite questionable. As in, ukikuwa number one kwa noisemakers list, you are the one. I mean, do you think what is it called? That sort of list, a shame and name list would help?
Yes, I fully agree because, as I said, it's incremental. You might not get everybody on board, but assuming you get only 10% on board this time, next year you get another 10% on board. Over time, you'll get a critical mass of people who say, hang on, why are we electing people who have integrity issues into public office? It doesn't make sense. But you start pole pole. It's a process and we'll get there.
Terry, any final words? Are we there yet? Are we making progress? Like you said, we are. I think you're in agreement we are.
Yes,
right?
we are making progress, but we are not yet there. As agencies in the criminal justice system, I can say we are committed to deal with these issues, but we cannot do it alone. So we are putting a challenge to, especially when we are going to this era of the campaigns, we are throwing a challenge to the political parties to help us. We are also throwing a challenge to Kenyans in general. Let us all look from inside, outside, and not waiting for the outside, yet on the inside you haven't. So let's work on ourselves from the inside and move outwards. And then we shall all meet at a place where we are better.
I think these discussions at the cafe have actually brought that out very clearly. We need to look at ourselves as a people and how we operate. So Petronila Chenko says, on YouTube, this conversation is very timely. We are looking forward to KLIF Secretariat. I don't know what that is.
That is the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum. That is one of our departments under EACC. Okay. And they're the ones who deal with our stakeholders. So they have great interest in this because some of our stakeholders are from the political sector. And
when you mention stakeholders, and I'm supposed to wind up, how are you dealing with political parties? Like we said earlier in our discussion, they are like the first line. They should be the ones saying, we are not taking you on, Anita, because you have integrity issues. How are you dealing with them?
I think we need to design a specific program for political parties. I don't know if you're aware, Terry, that we now have a training arm of EACC called the National Integrity Academy. It's similar to what you guys have. And we'll soon be rolling out a timetable for all the programs that we will be giving. But I think we should tailor one for political parties. Because as I mentioned when we were in the blackout, we have an awkward situation where somebody was arrested in December, charged in January, nominated by one of our major parties in March, and is now in Parliament in May, as of May. So maybe we need to talk to them and tell them you can also vet yourselves.
Yes, and you should be able to help other institutions enforce this. Then it will work. Thank you so much. We have to wind up. Unfortunately, I was enjoying the conversation because I think for me, as you said, it's quite personal. This leadership and integrity thing for me is quite personal. And as a country, like I say, we need to jiangalie. Maybe we should have played that.
It's a fantastic song.
Should have played it just as a theme song for this. Yeah. But as we wind up, I want to thank you so much. Of course, you are welcome again to come. Terry, as always, welcome. We cannot exhaust this. Definitely, we need the time we have, but you can create more time to discuss this. As the drums beat louder, we also shout louder.
Yes.
Maybe we'll convert a few.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. This has been the ODPP Cafe, always on Friday from 8 a.m. We've been discussing leadership and integrity. And as again, like all the other topics we have, what has come clear is we need to look at ourselves and evaluate our value system as a people. Sometimes it looks like our level of shame is quite low. You see it in traffic, you see it how we elect our leaders, and then we come out after elections and start screaming the loudest that the law is not working for us. Yet it is in our constitution. We brought it into force to show us how to live and to govern how we live, but we are still lacking in some areas. So let's all just bootstrap and join institutions that are there to help us enforce these things like Chapter 6. But otherwise, let's keep doing this. Let's keep shouting. Like I'm saying, we may convert a few people on the way. So I'm going to wish you a nice weekend ahead. And of course, let's catch up in the week to see what we'll discuss next week. Have a great day and a great weekend ahead. God bless. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.